Hey guys, this is Casey from Tracor Clan, the Mandalorian Mercs of Michigan, and you're listening to the Jedi Temple Archives podcast. If you loved The Mandalorian and are looking to make your own Mando, come find us at www.facebook.com/Michigan Mercs, and we will show you the way. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sunny Ravencourt from the University of Coruscant, and when I can't find reliable information for a lecture, I steal it from the Jedi Temple Archive podcast. Seriously, I do. Their security is terrible. There's like one old lady running the whole place.
Welcome to episode 42 of the Jedi Temple Archives podcast.
There is more knowledge here than anywhere else in the galaxy. Only members of the Jedi Council are allowed access. Guarding the holocrons is one of the most important duties a Jedi can be given. Do you think you're up to the task?
Fans, welcome to another episode of the Jedi Temple Archives podcast. I'm your host, Rob, and I'm going to be joined here shortly by Charles and Pat from the ConverSWations podcast, who are here this week to help me break down season 1 of The Mandalorian and kind of talk about some of the things that were revealed, some of the things that we loved about that first season, and generally just have some fun. But before we get to that segment of the show, I do want to note that we are recording this episode on Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. Also, I want to point out, kind of before we get into our main topic, that we are going to be having a mega crossover event with the Scarif podcast in February here. Ro is going to be releasing that episode, the first half of that mega crossover episode here within the next week or so. So keep an eye out for that on the Scarif podcast. Our topic was fan service, the other 4-letter word, which I thought was really interesting. It ties in with kind of one of the things that I had planned for February, which given the Valentine's Day is this month and love is in the air, certainly the love letter that was written to Star Wars fans in the form of Rogue One, which is certainly one of our favorite films, and I know it was an inspiration for Ro in the naming of the Scarif podcast. And kind of in keeping with that theme and in keeping with the theme of Valentine's Day in February, I'm going to be giving away a couple of Black Series figures that I picked up. We've got Jyn Erso in her Jedha gear and Cassian Andor in his Edu gear. And given the fact that there was definitely a strong hinting of kind of a growing relationship between those two within Rogue One, it just seemed fitting for a giveaway for February. So certainly check out our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, maybe even I'll post it on Pinterest, and look for basically the information out there on how to enter that podcast. You can find us on all 4 of those locations at JTA Podcast. And we're probably also going to throw in some impetus for people to maybe call into our new voicemail at 201-746-JTAP and drop us some information or some thoughts that we can include in some future shows. And I also wanted to mention that we do have a new logo for the podcast, so very excited about that. Really happy with how that turned out, and kind of look for that. I think we're going to be picking up some swag that we can include with some of our giveaways or send out to our listeners or people that join us out on Patreon at JTA Podcast. So look for that in the near future.
I can get you more credits.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
All right, we are back with our special guests for the week. I've got Charles and Pat from the ConverSWations podcast on with me to talk about season 1 of The Mandalorian. Gentlemen, welcome to the Jedi Temple Archives podcast.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is Pat.
You said everything.
We're done. Thanks.
That is still again, you guys are right up there with University of Coruscant in terms of funny lead-ins for the show, station IDs.
Nice.
When you guys hear this episode, you'll get to hear the one that he sent as well. Actually, I think I already shared it with Charles. I cut Pat out of that.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I only shared it with people that had seen Rise of Skywalker 3 times. And Pat has gotten up and left the podcast.
Well, it's now ConverSWation. It's singular.
It's right. Singular. So, guys, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Before we get talking about The Mandalorian, I'm going to have to run you guys through the Jedi Trials, which is kind of our little Q&A section of the show where people get to know a little bit about you guys. So these are hardcore questions. You may struggle to answer them, but we will get going anyway. So question 1 for you guys. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Go. You can go first.
Me?
Yeah.
Me.
You talk first.
I talk first or you talk first?
No, you talk first.
Okay, I couldn't
It's
tell.
the mask.
This is bad. I don't like this. The Empire Strikes Back is number 1, tied with Return of the Jedi.
1 and 1A.
Does that count?
Yes, actually, I've got my co-host Tom. His wife Michelle is famous for 1A and 1B, or 5A and 5B, or whatever the case may be.
Oh.
So, we've got a little leeway on this show for multi answers.
Very cool.
Good.
Yeah,
That's my multi-answer.
All
sweet.
right.
Get one per show.
I think that's a great policy. One multi-answer per show.
And I'll have to go with A New Hope. I just think that's where it all started for me. I saw Empire Strikes Back first and experienced that, but when I saw A New Hope right after it at the drive-in, it gave me the context of Empire Strikes Back to what I could understand it back then, and that was it. That was the starting point of where we are today.
Yeah, awesome, and I'm glad. I think it's cool that you got to see A New Hope at the drive-in. That was my first experience as well. So,
Yeah.
the old tinny speaker and hanging from the window.
Yes.
I mean, doesn't matter.
My cool older sister.
Right, exactly.
Sure, we wouldn't have seen it.
Terrific. All right, second question. I'll let Charles start this one. What is your favorite Star Wars character?
Ooh, wow. I would have to go. I'd say Han Solo. He was my first
Crush.
my first crush, my first Canadian winter Halloween costume.
Did we talk about that yet?
No, we haven't spoken about that yet. Well, we've mentioned it, but we've never gone into detail of what happened. So yeah, I'd have to go with Han Solo just because of the first man crush, like Pat said.
Yeah, my favorite character is Babu Frick.
Hey!
No, I think Luke Skywalker
Okay.
is my favorite, just because I think he's the relatable character in the original trilogy, of course, and because everybody thinks Han's cool and wants to be Han, but nobody's Han. I mean, like the Fonz is about as close as you get to being Han.
Right, not even me.
Right. No, not even with the name tag. But he's not who most people are, and I think most people can identify more with Luke, as I did when I first saw the trilogy, and it stuck with me.
Yeah, like those are both great answers. All right, so who is your favorite Star Wars droid? Pat, we'll start with you.
Okay.
And you can't say Babu Frick.
Oh. Yeah.
He knows.
He does know. He knows. Well, he's a Jedi Temple Archives podcast. He knows everything.
He does.
He does.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah. I'm gonna go. Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's Chopper, hands down. Chopper.
God love Rebels.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's cantankerous and fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be different,
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go with the more classic astromech,
Okay.
and I gotta say R2.
All right.
I think without him, like, everybody'd be screwed.
Yes, including the entire movie franchise. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I thought for sure you were going to go for R5.
Well, no, I see. I was motivated to, pick our five.
Oh
but-
boy, that's excellent pun. Thank you very much.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Blown motivators for the win. Oh.
One show.
All right. So next question for you guys. What is your favorite Star Wars toy or collectible?
Ooh.
Will you go first?
Well, gosh, there's so many.
Yes. But you have some classics.
I figured you guys would say each other's lightsabers just because you guys had so much fun trying to figure out how to turn them on.
That's a good point.
I do enjoy that.
Yes.
I think my favorite might be Luke on a Ledge.
Luke on a Ledge.
It might be Luke on a Ledge.
Yeah, and I will definitely tell our listeners, if you have not checked out the ConverSWations podcast, you totally have got to go out there and do that. One of their favorite things to do is, as he just said, Luke on a Ledge, which is their Elf on a Shelf riff, right? He's been at Galaxy's Edge. He's kind of made it all over the place. So, and it's fun you can have all year round, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We don't want to flood everyone's all three of our listeners' feeds with Luke on a Ledge nonsense and Luke foolery year round.
Right.
So we try and limit it. It's very tough, but he's great. He's got like an elf.
Yeah, he's got the green. Yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he comes around for Life Day.
Yeah, and definitely check out their website because they have all kinds of lovely little setups with their Black Series figures, all kinds of fun. You never know who might be frozen in a block of ice.
That's true. What's yours?
I would have to say, like Rob said before, the lightsaber. I think it's probably provided the I've had many of the toys. I had the AT-AT when I was young, and that's long gone, of course. All the toys that I used to have. So that nostalgia piece is there. But I think the lightsaber for me represents sort of the resurgence of the fandom and what we've started doing and Celebration. It is 100% tied to Celebration. That's what we bought it for.
Right.
And that has really launched the fandom once again. So it's the lightsaber as a symbol of my Charles Demption.
Plus, it's a huge advance from our childhood when it was that silver metal flashlight that everyone would run around the house with.
Yes,
with the light turned on, pretending like you had a lightsaber.
I tried.
I used a broomstick.
But I put tinfoil on mine. Yeah,
nice.
So yeah, well, that looks like a saber. But not lightsaber. I did. Who put tinfoil on the broom handle? Not me.
So you're the original broom boy.
Yep. Yeah. There you. Oh,
that's you.
That's me.
That's you.
Although, like with several other layers of clothing because it was so cold.
Yeah, it's okay though. It's fine.
That's amazing.
Outside looking for a tauntaun to cut open, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to do what you got to do in Canada.
That is right. Yeah, I don't live in Canada.
Beavers are too small.
I always say we're like honorary Canadians here in Michigan. So
that's very true.
Yeah.
He's closer now than you are.
Yes. Wow. That's okay.
Trust me, I don't want that distinction. So. No. Just in the sense that I would rather be within striking distance of Galaxy's Edge. So.
There.
You guys definitely have the advantage on me there. So, all right. And then the final question is, what is your favorite Star Wars memory?
Ooh. You go first. Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I think my favorite Star Wars memory was, okay, so when we were at Celebration, we got a photo op with James Arnold Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pretty awesome. And of course, photo op lines are very quick moving. And it's like, hi, you're my favorite. Click, bye. And so it's very brief. Then the next day, we saw him to get the photo we had the previous day autographed. But of course, we were no longer in our Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan attire. We were now in Hondo and Cad Bane.
Right.
And
genius, by the way.
And we walked up and he was like, I don't think I like the look of these guys. And we were like, that's Obi-Wan. And then we showed him the photo and he's like, this is you guys. And we're like, yeah, this is yesterday. Oh, yes, this was yesterday.
You're in character.
Well, of course we are. So then we started to speak with him about all our different costume changes and such. And like he was surprised, impressed.
Yes.
And told us to look for him the next day when we were. What was the next day? The next day was Plo Koon.
That's right. And Kit Fisto, right?
And with him voicing Plo.
Yes.
Like, oh, come see me. And we're like, look, we come see you every day if we could. But
and we had cash.
Right.
This is 2 visits without a restraining order or contact from a lawyer. So this is this is a very positive experience. Oh no. So far.
So I thought that was really very cool and gave some good insight into him as a person. And like when you they always tell you not to meet your idols because they're let down or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good guy. And I thought that was really cool to see and be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, there's many memories. It's a Celebration that I could bring up as well. But that was a great, so I'm not going to say Celebration anymore. What I will do is I think before the releases of the special editions, my wife now, but she bought me for Christmas one year was the original trilogy on VHS in the cardboard box. And it wasn't the widescreen. It was just like but it was the original versions of the movies. And I hadn't seen those in a long time. We had rented them, whatever. But I distinctly remember that in the mid 90s when she bought it, and we watched the entire series over a weekend, and it was absolutely fantastic. And because we'd known about the special editions, and there was all this grumbling about new Star Wars stuff. And that was really a great moment of like, wow, this could be happening again soon. And that was I'll never forget that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's coming out of the dark times, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I do
much.
No, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think we're so far down the road that we're going to have to start explaining to people what VHS tapes were.
Yes. Yeah.
We're a ways past that technology, but to the point of Pat's story, it is interesting. If you guys listen to their podcast, they do have a very cool kind of intro from James Arnold Taylor and his Obi-Wan and Plo Koon voices, which again, I haven't been to Celebration, one of the great voids in my life, but having gone to Grand Rapids Comic-Con and met up with Tom Kane, the voice actors just seem to be very appreciative of the fandom, and certainly for you guys who do a lot of cosplay, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that, and certainly you guys do a lot of quality costumes, and then put yourselves into those characters, which is like the next level of commitment, right? The Hondo Ohnaka, the Hondo Ohnaka
sometimes, but for us it's always a hit.
Yeah, yeah. I've got my Plo Koon Funko Pop. It's one of the ones that when I saw it at Grand Rapids Comic-Con, I absolutely had to get.
Nice one.
Because Plo Koon's such a cool character. So, definitely awesome that you guys get into the cosplay like that and get a chance to really express that through the Comic-Cons and in this case, Star Wars Celebration.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that is it for the Jedi Trials. You guys have passed with flying colors.
Woo! Both of us?
Yes, both of you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where's the thing?
Oh, I put the medal away. It's already he's gone to get something.
Oh boy.
It's in the blue bag. Blue bag. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's coming. This is perfectly appropriate.
Yeah, I don't have a commercial. Oh, there you go.
I can't do Chewie, but
Oh man, when we talked to Yoshi Vu a couple weeks ago, and the pin medal, whatever that they were given for working on Rise of Skywalker, which was modeled after that Yavin medal, I think I'm going to break into his house and take it.
That was a really cool story. Yeah, Yoshi Vu. You remember I told you you spoke to him? Yeah. That's amazing. And that's like one of his most treasured pieces, right? Didn't he say that?
Yep, that was his favorite memory.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, terrific. So I think we'll go ahead and we'll get moved on to The Mandalorian. I know it's been a little while since this first season wrapped up, and I kind of wanted to wait a little bit just so we all had time to process it a little bit. And certainly we've got some of the listeners that we've got internationally who may not even have Disney Plus yet.
Right.
But yeah. For the purposes of spoilers, I'm not going to really worry about it. I feel like anyone who hasn't seen it and doesn't want to get spoiled will probably avoid this episode until that comes out. But if you haven't avoided the episode, definitely you may want to consider holding off until after you've seen season 1 of The Mandalorian. But certainly this represents kind of a groundbreaking change. I mean, we just talked about the fact that we did have that dark time after the original trilogy where we weren't sure if there was going to be any more films, and now we've gotten to the point where we've got movie quality shows like The Mandalorian that are on streaming services. So with any luck, we're not going to have any of those giant gaps. Even if there's not a movie coming out, we're going to have some of this Disney Plus entertainment that we're going to be able to rely on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
There's several shows that they're working on. So, if they stagger them, then, you might not have 3 or 4 shows coming out each week, but you'll have something coming out in the next couple months, throughout the year, which I think is great.
Yeah. And it keeps that pot, it keeps the stove warm with content. Of course, there was the books, always there were the books, even in the dark times, of course, in the comic books. But, let's face it, especially these days, filmed entertainment and access to it through streaming services will, really fill those gaps. And in some cases, and especially with The Mandalorian, add more lore than a movie could because they have the time to explore.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm waiting for them to come out with a series. It's kind of like the, they've got the shows where the people get into what are they called? The storage facilities or whatever. They'll have those facilities that have been locked up and no one's come to claim their goods. And
Storage Wars.
Yeah. Storage Wars. They're going to do a riff on Storage Wars with like the Jawas, right?
They should.
That would be hilarious.
I know.
Houdini.
Houdini. That's right. Yeah, it would be. I think that would be a great kind of reality television version of Star Wars. But I could not get Storage Wars for the life of me. I could picture it, but thank you for coming to the assist on that one. But with regards to The Mandalorian, certainly I've kind of heard it said by other people, and I was in the same boat. When Star Wars Celebration came along, the footage that they showed at Star Wars Celebration was still a little bit on the rough side, and they really didn't talk about the fact that it was kind of unfinished footage. So I know there was a little bit of concern that maybe it wasn't going to be quite movie quality, but I would say that within that first episode, really quickly, you realized that this was a high quality finished product.
At 100%. The feel was immediately set.
Star Wars.
Yeah, and Star Wars, and it had that sense of lived-in world. And when my wife and the kids watched it too, my son so much, but even my daughter was like, she was immediately locked in, and that was an interesting point because she loves anime and different interest groups. She's 16, whatever, but she had watched the movies, and she even sensed that this was an in-world experience with a different swing to it.
Yeah, I think that that first scene in the cantina, you're brought into Star Wars.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, it's the cantina. This sense of familiarity there, and then even when they're heading back to the Razor Crest, and then there's like, oh, stay off the ice, and then the creature. And all.
Yeah,
it's very. Very familiar.
Yeah.
It's not planets you've seen, not creatures or characters you've necessarily seen, but it's definitely got that feel, and it brings you right into the franchise.
Right.
Yeah. And, to that point, I did think it was funny. I mean, really right off the bat, you get a couple of cameos from some comedians. When Brian Posen pulled up in the speeder, I was like, oh my God. Yeah. So, and of course he's the one warning him to stay off the ice, and 5 seconds later he's gone. Right. So
But he lived through that on social media. He posted that video of himself watching himself. And he's like freaking out with the Mandalorian behind him. He's like, oh, with his crazy hair, of course, in tow.
Exactly. I did think it was really cool, though, that, right off that very first scene, not only do you get one of the characters speaking Huttese, which is one of those things that I really think that they did to establish and make it feel like it was Star Wars. But it was that darker, that grittier scene. And then, of course, the Aqualish at the bar there that he smashes with the mug, and when he tries to escape, the fact that he ropes him and drags him back into the closing door. It pretty much established pretty quickly that they weren't going to stay clear of some of that gruesome material as well.
Yeah, and a little bit of a darker edge to it too, but and it sets up like we said, but a sort of a understanding of the timeline of post Return of the Jedi, and sort of a darker time and more ruthless to a certain degree. Where those punches aren't being pulled anymore because it's serious and it's tough to make a living, especially for a bounty hunter. There's no more Mr. Good Guy anymore.
No,
not at first. We think, oh wow, this is the anti-hero of the show. Okay.
Yeah, he's like shooting everybody.
Yeah.
Carbonizing.
Yeah.
I'll
bring you in warm or I'll bring you in cold.
Yeah.
Wonder what that would look like in Aurebesh.
I don't know. I tried it, but
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
No, and I think it was awesome that, they have established that we're at this point, probably 6 or 7 years past the events of Return of the Jedi, but Empire Strikes Back, where they really had first established that you could freeze someone in carbonite, and all of a sudden they've got it miniaturized to the point where he's able to do this right on a ship,
right? Which
was a cool touch as well.
Yeah, that's so good. And you see the racks of before I even realized it, it's like, oh my God, those are multiple things, multiple carbonite captures. Yeah, which is fantastic.
And that's the thing. It's like you could use that for daycare. You can't control your bounty. Carbonize it. That's it.
Give us a few minutes. We got to go thaw your children.
The Mandalorian babysitting services.
Hey, remember that guy with that shirt?
Oh my God!
We were last in Galaxy's Edge. The guy had a shirt.
Yeah.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, but the carbonizing that's fantastic. Yeah, I see another T-shirt coming.
Yeah, I know. It's the new version of parenting.
Yeah, and of course that's where the Life Day became canon immediately. Right there. That was absolutely amazing.
Right.
Well, and they wasted no time.
No.
Yeah, they wasted no time establishing a couple things from that holiday special. They had the Life Day reference. Obviously, the Mandalorians using that Ambin phase pulse blaster with the electrical prongs on the end, which was something that we had seen with Boba Fett in that Star Wars holiday special cartoon. So it was cool that they had kind of really brought that back into canon. And then I don't know what your guys' takes were. I know there was a lot of people talking about the fact that George Lucas and Kathleen Kennedy were two of those characters that were frozen in carbonite. It appeared.
Yes.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is fantastic.
So
wow.
Apparently that's how you deal with people that are telling you to go a certain direction and maybe you don't agree with it.
Here, I put your notes over here. Come take a look at them. Zero.
Carbonite.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I did not know that. Thank you. That was amazing.
I don't know that was for fact. I know that there were a number of people who were talking about the fact that it certainly appeared that the two of those characters, one of them could easily have been Lucas, the other one could easily have been Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know that it was ever verified by anyone within the show, but it's certain.
Until they're thawed out first.
Right, exactly. So yeah, and of course, the other great thing about that first episode, they very quickly established the fact that not only was it going to be kind of dark and gritty, but there was certainly going to be some elements of humor in it with IG-11. And I thought Taika Waititi, who voiced that character within season 1, was just brilliant. I know that Pat was making some jokes about the self-destruct, initiating self-destruct.
Yes, I will initiate self-destruct sequence.
What, 3 times he did that in that in a span of 3 minutes?
Don't do it. Chest opens up.
Yeah.
He's got to know. He's like that person, that's always like doom and gloom, like, oh, I guess this is it. No,
no.
Stop.
Step away from the ledge. And it's also too with IG, like you had mentioned, like first of all, like that sort of cold humor as well, but the talk about bringing to life I always loved IG 88 in the Empire, and so much so that it was last year I bought IG. See, look, there's a nice little kiss from IG. But it absolutely imbued the entire IG line with an absolutely destructive nature of just why they are bounty hunters. They're absolutely fantastic in that scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you see him when he first sees him, and he's like, pow, pow, pow,
yeah.
pow.
Yeah.
It's like,
wow.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of riffs off the fact that there was a lot to be said about the fact that IG-88 and Boba Fett back in the original trilogy kind of had a bit of a relationship that was certainly not friendly in any way, shape, or form. There was supposedly a story about how IG-88 had followed Boba Fett to Bespin, and the two of them had faced off, and IG-88 was taken out by Boba Fett, kind of in the interlude of them arriving at Cloud City.
Wow. And then you see the
IG droid.
IG.
That's why oh my God, that's why he's with the Ugnaughts.
Yep.
Right.
Oh man.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah.
Early Boba gets the worm.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Empire Strikes Back, one of the scenes where you're kind of back in the Ugnaughts incinerator area, you do see an IG droid kind of leaned up against the wall near the incinerator there. So supposedly that is tied into that whole storyline.
Wow. And they were competitive. They were competitors. Obviously,
right.
He was one of IG-88 was one of the other bounty hunters in the lineup.
Bridge.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is fantastic.
Yep.
More education for me.
Well, and it's another aside, but it's generally considered to be the fact that the reason that Boba Fett was able to guess what Han Solo was playing at in terms of floating away with the garbage was because of the experience when he and Jango Fett had thought that they lost Obi-Wan in that asteroid, or that they destroyed Obi-Wan in the asteroid field, and he'd attached to an asteroid and kind of waited them out. So that was kind of still stuck in Boba Fett's mind, and that's why he he stuck around and got ejected with the garbage as well. So it's cool how they kind of revisit some of these storylines and kind of lessons learned within the Star Wars kind of mythos.
And especially with the historical nature of Boba Fett, almost especially in the Bounty Guild, you'd expect that those stories would make more of the rounds than the Jedi would, as opposed to those like sort of lore-based pieces. Yeah. Oh, I heard from a friend of a friend of a friend that the Jedi were here once, versus like amongst the guild, there's no honor, but there's plenty of stories,
Right, and it's it's kind of like if you've got somebody that's famous from the same town as you, you kind of brag about that a little bit.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's just,
same thing.
Famous Mandalorian bounty hunter.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
So are we.
Yeah. Exactly. We're all together. Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of the Mandalorians, we kind of get a pretty cool introduction to them within this episode as well, in the sense that they've kind of got their lair kind of in the underbelly of the city, and they are establishing the fact that there was kind of like a Mandalorian purge that occurred, and they were generally in hiding and kind of only coming out singly. And we also get introduced to the Armorer, which is the character that is helping the Mandalorian kind of craft his armor, which is not something that we've seen before. I mean, we've heard of crafting a Mandalorian armor and the whole concept of this Beskar, but we definitely get an introduction to that through the piece of that Beskar that the Mandalorian gets by taking this commission from the client, played by Werner Herzog.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what a character he played! Wow. Right. Yeah. Yeah. But that armor immediately gives almost mythical spin to the guild itself. It's like this sort of almost like a magic user with the blue flame, and being able to make the armor and make the different pieces and everything. And she's the one who bestows the signets and everything. Yeah, there's a very
ritualistic.
Yes, there you go. Yeah. Yes.
And I thought it was kind of interesting within this series that they established that for those of us who are familiar with the Clone Wars and with Rebels, who have seen Mandalorians in the past at a much earlier time, that this whole concept of not taking off your helmet was never really a part of canon prior to this show, but clearly that is something that has come out of the Purge. Occurring for the Mandalorian, so they've kind of adopted a new outlook on things, and as well as the fact that the Mandalorian in this case is what is referred to as a foundling, and he seems to have this tie to kind of lost children and childless parent or parentless child or children within this particular episode, which then ties in very closely to the end of this episode, where we get kind of the big reveal of episode 1 in possibly the cutest thing to ever come to Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Oh, am I going to spoil this for Pat?
Yeah. He hasn't seen the first episode yet.
Oh, sweet.
Can you imagine?
What thing? What did they find?
If there's a person out there that has not seen Baby Yoda, I don't consider that a spoiler at this point. That's been spoiled multi times.
There's the Baby Yoda.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's Baby Yoda is brilliant.
My wife has put out a bounty for anyone that can find her a life-size Baby Yoda that doesn't cost $5 million.
Right, or $350.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I can tell you about one that's not $5 million. Sideshow Collectibles has just come out with a quote-unquote life-size Baby Yoda that is unbelievably realistic looking.
Yeah.
And it's on pre-order right now for, as Charles said, 350 credits.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
350 credits. Oh, wait a minute. Because the in Hollywood Studios they have sideshow stuff.
They do. Which one? Where at
Launch Bay?
The outpost.
See Darth Vader.
Yeah, the outpost.
Launch Bay.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yes, well, it's true. I wonder if they'll have it there. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those will go like hotcakes for sure.
Yeah, we have to be there the first day.
Right. All right.
Again.
All right.
Right.
No problem. Get a boarding pass too. Yeah. Well, it's okay. We'll get on at 7:00 at night. We'll be fine. I actually toyed with the idea, speaking of Baby Yoda and 350 on Friday. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
When we saw the pictures on Friday, and actually that's how, and talking about the Mandalorian in general and Baby Yoda in specific, it has my entire office abuzz with Baby Yoda memes.
Right.
Half of them haven't seen the show, but the other half have. But the fact that,
but they all know who he is.
yeah, and it transcends the movie, right? So like it's like a gateway drug almost. So when I saw the Baby Yoda, the life-sized Baby Yoda, for maybe 35 seconds, I thought about placing a burlap old-timey money bag on top of Baby Yoda, or then just overlaying a dollar sign on, because that's how much he costs. I didn't even do it, because if that got out to anybody, I would be like vilified for, how dare you deface the perfect Baby Yoda. That's why I didn't even do it. I didn't even venture. I didn't want to be the stormtrooper beaten up on the.
Oh yeah, that Adam Pally and Bill Hader.
Yeah, they got it. Yeah. So
maybe you could convince Peter to get one for the office.
Yes, for research.
Morale.
Yes. SMH Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
There you go.
We can take him home.
Right. Well, for safekeeping, right.
And the reference they were making, from episode 8 of season 1, where the scout troopers have captured Baby Yoda and they're kind of punching the bag that he's in. I was shocked that they could hit it, honestly.
Yes.
I thought it would have been perfect if they swung at the bag and missed, but
so true. Apparently it only involves guns.
Right.
That's a very good point.
No, but I mean, the cool thing is it's always been kind of established that Star Wars was based on, the Akira Kurosawa samurai films and the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns, and certainly with the music from Goranson in this particular series, they've definitely established a lot of that kind of callback, but the episodes definitely feel that way as well. And you see a lot of that influence within the episodes kind of as we go through the season. So we'll step through it a little bit. So, we've talked a lot about episode 1. Certainly kind of the big battle scene at the end with the Mandalorian and IG-11 is a wonderful scene. And even leading up to that, the character of Queel that was played by Nick Nolte, and a lot of people didn't even realize that was Nick Nolte, but this kind of the first time we see an Ugnaught that's not enslaved or in a life of servitude, he was an incredible character within season 1 as well.
Yeah, and even with as the series unfolded, the lore and his history, it just brings like such I was going to say human face, but let's say Ugnautian face to where they came from and how, much like the Wookiees being in servitude, so were they, like they're slaves essentially. And he freed himself of that, paid his amends for the evils that he did, and was just trying to live a peaceful life. But absolutely, what a wonderful character, wonderful character. Mm-hmm. And I mean, talk about again spawning another meme craze, and with I Have Spoken, of course,
right?
It's just fantastic.
Yeah. And then there's the blurg. I was just listening to your guys' character episode. Not character, the creatures episode, right? The blurg was another one of those creatures that it had been shown. I know that Cham Syndulla, as you guys were talking about, had been seen writing that in, I believe it was Rebels. Or was it Clone Wars? I can't recall.
Clone Wars? Cham wrote it in the Clone Wars.
Clone Wars,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had seen them prior, but the fact that we now get to see them in like a live action show, amazing.
And Pat put it in that list completely by fluke. It was like totally.
I had put that in before we even saw the episode.
That's what I'm saying. That was totally one of those things you just put in there. I was like, wow.
There it is.
Yeah. The one that we all just saw.
Reference check. Yeah. Got it.
Dave Filoni might not be taking your calls, but he's clearly listening to your episodes.
Yes. And that's just as well.
Yeah.
Although, he could be a Patreon at least, but whatever.
Whatever. Just invite us to lunch.
Yeah. Just a couple.
Getting past his lawyers is the hard part.
Yes. And the injunctions. But beyond that, we're fine.
Right. All that red tape.
Yeah.
Training orders,
another thing I found was what I liked about the entire series was the weekly launch or the weekly release.
Yeah.
It felt like a old serial show.
Yeah, and I found that it's not a ship in a bottle style show where it goes from event to event, the baddie of the week, but it certainly allowed each episode to sit and mull it over. And the excitement, I just think that it built it even more. I mean, even like my wife and my daughter, eventually, that my son didn't give, two whats about it, but it was like, it's going to be, we're watching it tonight, right? And there was like this event, it became event TV. Yeah. And you have the method of which I grew up on. I'm sure Rob and Pat as well. Is like the weekly release was always what it was about. There was never this binge watching, and it allowed for that pause between. It allowed for scene changes and taking a breath. And I really appreciated that part of it.
Yeah, it makes you wait for it.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, I think, the Star Wars fandom has definitely seen a lot of division based on some of the films that have come out, and you get all this kind of conflict between I'm aligned with this trilogy and I'm aligned with this trilogy, and everyone's kind of being very vocal in terms of what they like, and if other people don't feel the same way, then there's an issue. But with The Mandalorian, I didn't hear really any of that. It was the fandom seemed to be very unified in the sense that they were enjoying the series. I think that the fact that it was put out on a weekly basis allowed everyone to kind of bond over what they had seen. And, like you said, you get a chance to digest it. You get a chance to kind of build up the excitement about what you're going to see that following week. And, there's certainly people who have said, it's from a Disney perspective, it's great because they're going to draw out your subscription longer. But even if that were the case, I don't think that's as important as the fact that it gave, especially for podcasts, right? You get a chance to talk about it a little bit each week and kind of theory craft, if you want to, about what's going on. And that definitely was a huge plus for this series.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And that I didn't feel personally that there was any episode that was a downer. I love them all. I mean, I think that there was some people like this episode, some people like, that's other episode. And, but I found each one had its perfect place. And, one of my favorites is actually The Sanctuary, for as, almost as tropey as it was with the training the villagers and the love interest, whatever, all that stuff. But I loved, that was the perfect, and the title worked for me as well. Like The Sanctuary, it was actually a pause from the first 3 episodes. Like, oh my God, this rocket is like careening off into space. This is amazing. Okay, now sort of a series breather, but still so important. Introduced Kara, gave him, we saw him first remove his helmet. Well, not that we saw him, but there was hugely important steps for the development of the character within that episode, as almost a subtext to the fantastic ATST and Yoshi's involvement, which was, I mean, when I watched that again, I was exactly watching for that, and I was like, "Oh my, that is such cool background information to have." But that entire scene was a fantastic piece of it as well, and just great Star Wars action.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the episodes when you're first watching them might feel disjointed. Might feel like, oh, this one seemed like filler, like fluff, like there's nothing to it. But they drop these seeds.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of feels like a flavor of the week episode, but then later on they tap back into it and you're like, oh yeah, so that's part of the overlying story. And every episode has its place in the season.
Yes. Yeah. And by the time you hit the end, it's all very, very clear why each one of those steps we're taking.
Yeah, and they're definitely building. I mean, by the time you get to especially the last 2 episodes of the season, but you've seen kind of what they've been laying out, and it's an interesting point because it goes back to some conversations we had the live chat that we did with Scarif this past week, where we were talking about the fact that one of the things with the sequel trilogy is they had different directors, but it didn't seem like they had a real solid unified vision of what they wanted to do across those 3 films, which created some feelings of disjointed storytelling. But with this particular series, they had, Dave Filoni, who directed a couple episodes. They had Taika Waititi, they had Rick Famuyiwa, they had Deborah Chow, Bryce Dallas Howard. I mean, they had multiple directors, and they all had a chance to kind of put their stamp on the individual episodes that they directed. Yeah. But it was clear that there was a plan for the entire series. And so, when I've talked to Yoshi in the past about, the graphics that they do, the CGI that they do, and the effects that they create, it was very reminiscent of what he told me the feeling was at Lucasfilm, which is they will give you some basic direction of the overall feel that or the overall look that they want for something, but you still have a lot of room to move in terms of creating your own vision. And I felt that way with the direction of each of these episodes. They clearly had some things that they had to accomplish, but they had a lot of freedom in terms of how they expressed that. And in the case of The Sanctuary, that was the episode, I believe, that Bryce Dallas Howard had directed.
Yes.
And, you listen to Cara Dune, the actress that plays Cara Dune. I'm blanking.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Gina Carano.
Gina Carano, very well. Yeah, there you go.
You listen to, or you look at some of the social media posts that she had made, just talking about what a pleasure it was to work with Bryce Dallas Howard. And, that episode had a great feel. It was definitely unique for the season. But it was certainly very cool to establish this relationship between the Mandalorian and this character of Cara Dune, and the fact that they both had an attachment at that point to this the child, the baby of Yoda's species, and the fact that they were both initially very not protective, but they were both very suspicious of each other.
Yeah, I think guarded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that led to their initial confrontation. They do have a confrontation early in that episode, but by the end, they realize that they're more alike than they are different, and they are willing to team up and kind of train these villagers. Oh boy.
Sorry. That was hilarious. Pat just did this tea sipping scene.
Did he have the flying pinky?
But you're 100% right in that that contentious introduction and suspicion, but like both, obviously the Mandalorian sort of being a very obvious sort of bounty hunter and like a potential threat, whereas Kara, of course, you can say that she's doesn't exactly blend in with the other residents, but she's on the hideout, and that immediate physical introduction.
Yeah.
Right.
But that ground-based attack that they did on each other certainly solidified their relationship for the future, where he knew that this was going to be not just someone who could hold her own, but a really good ally.
Yeah.
Well, and to the point about the Baby Yoda memes, I mean the scene in that physical confrontation they had where they're fighting and they kind of reach that stalemate, and in the background you see the child sitting there with his little cup of soup that a lot of people turned into a can of White Claw on social media, which I thought was hilarious. But
yes. Have you seen the White Claw tattoo?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Right. Just making sure that it's out there.
That is commitment.
Someone has that on their body.
That is commitment, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, again, to the earlier point that Charles had made about the fact that Baby Yoda has really kind of been, in a lot of ways, I agree with the fact that it's been a gateway drug to Star Wars, because I have seen a number of people who had not previously had any interest in Star Wars whatsoever kind of got caught up in the hype about what was going on in The Mandalorian. They watched that, and that was kind of their impetus to go out and start watching the movies. And then they're like, oh, these are great. I've got a coworker who had never seen Star Wars, and had told me, I have some podcast swag on my desk for people to grab if they want. And he had come up to me and said, I started watching Star Wars, and I would never watch a movie from the 70s. And I watched the original trilogy, and those don't look like they're movies from the 70s.
Wow.
And it's a testament to the technology. And interestingly enough, within The Mandalorian, they're using this new technology within the episodes called stagecraft. So almost
fantastic.
Everything that they did within The Mandalorian was shot on sound stages, but it's this giant round LED screen that allows the camera to move without breaking it up. And they still have practical objects. They'll build portions of ships, but it's then just kind of feathering in the area between those practical objects and this. It can either be footage shot on location, or it can be touched up with CGI. But it allows them to get that quality sound without having to drive up the budget going to all these locations and establishing a shooting schedule there. So these episodes, I think they said they were like 15 million a piece. But when you consider that, probably three episodes is the equivalent of one feature-length film, you're not going to make a Star Wars quality film for $45 million.
No.
So I'm very excited to see what they do with that Cassian Andor series and Obi-Wan Kenobi series, just based on the technology that they've got to play with.
Right. And they've got, they set the bar very high, but I don't think, to your point, is that the bar isn't set without reach, because if they have that kind of budget, and you would assume that they're not going to back away from that budget. Why would they? Yeah. So with a good story, but then the equal sound stages that they've already set up to use in this series, and characters, quite honestly, that we're potentially more invested in with Cassian and K2SO. Those, that's why I'm so excited for. It's like, wow, this is now the small scale, but at a larger scale, more Star Wars that you can get versus a 2.5-3 year period of a movie. And like the divisiveness that could happen with the movie, that, it didn't go this way, didn't go that way. Well, guess what? We have 8 episodes or whatever, or 6 episodes, whatever it's going to be, to develop these characters that and give them a backstory. And, unfortunately, we know what happens to Cassian and K2SO, but it's going to be fascinating to see that run up to where they're in Rogue One. But yeah, it bodes very, very well for the future.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Pat?
Yeah, sure. I think that the idea of a live action streaming service TV show was something that, obviously they hadn't done before. And I think it was a bit of a gamble, because if it didn't do well, I'm sure they would never have heard the end of it. So I think that they had to be very judicious with the budget and with the casting and the storylines and all that, which just kind of the fact that it was knocked out of the park, I think, gives them even more liberty to branch out and maybe invest more into these other properties for the other series, because they know how to make small screen serialized hits.
Very good point. Yeah, especially on the flyer. They took, not only did they launch their streaming service with this show, they launched the show at the same time. So there was a double buy-in for, not us, obviously, like we're in no matter what. But those casual people who may or may not, oh gosh, another streaming service. Now I'm getting back up to my cable bill. Of course, you get the entire Disney library at certain different times, whatever, not all at once, but you get those amazing movies back there. But it was a huge risk, and let's face it, without the success of The Mandalorian, like you said, well, hey, maybe we're learning. We'll get it with the Cassian Andor series, but that distrust could have already been sown. Like, oh, maybe I will cancel the service. Not anymore. Now it's like scramble to get that on.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting because there's the big movement out there for Make Solo 2 happen that's been going on social media for quite some time. But I could definitely see them continuing the story of what they had set out to do within Solo within a streaming series and be phenomenally successful with it, as opposed to doing films.
So true. And you get the chance, like I said before, like you get the chance over 6 episodes, which amounts to 2 movies, but you also get to, really delve into the characters, and maybe less things get left on the cutting room floor, and you get a bit more development here and there. And, if you look at the entire Mandalorian series, you've got a character rooted in, obviously one of the most popular characters, at least in all of the fandom, but not Boba Fett. It's someone else. Yeah. But you've got that sort of buy-in immediately. You got that lore and the mystique. Right. And so then you throw in all these other characters with call-outs to the Alderaan and Tatooine. Obviously, the entire episode of the gunslinger.
Precisely.
Yeah, like literally.
Like where Luke was.
Right.
There's a little shrine, like Luke Skywalker drank blue milk here.
Yeah, there's a sign there. I'm not sure because it was written in Arabic and I can't read that. So yeah, that's right. Don't
point at me.
Take all that together, you have sort of like the easy way into buying into the entire potential for it after. And talking about the gunslinger, had they put that the first episode, I would have called that fan service, because that would have been the first episode. It's the easy get. But they buried that in number 5. You was deep into it, and it made sense at that point, and I had no problems with it. I mean, there was a huge amount of call outs and fun little tidbits for everyone to call back to. I had no problem with it at all. I mean, I thought that I do like where they put it. I think
it needs to be that far into the season.
To give the series its own foothold. And so like I said, if that had been episode 1, totally on board with it. Wow, they went for the fanboy jugular on that one, but not in this case.
Yeah, and I thought they did a great job. I mean, the first 3 episodes are really establishing the character of the Mandalorian. We get to see IG-11, who was certainly, that the comic relief, which is the last thing you would have expected out of, an assassin droid, right? you get to establish these great characters. I thought Carl Weathers' character of Grief Karga was awesome, and certainly a wonderful character. They do a great job even of when he goes to pay the Mandalorian his commission for bringing in his group of bounties there at the beginning, that he tries to pay him in the Imperial credits, and it does a great job of establishing that the Empire really is kind of falling in. It's fallen at that point. There's still a remnant out there, but those credits aren't really good. So he ends up paying him in the Mon Calamari flan, which I thought was a dessert, but whatever.
Yes. My wife pointed that out because it's one of her favorites.
Currency. Yes. Delicious currency.
It is, right. Spend it before you eat it.
I was going to say, talk about eating your salary.
Right.
All right.
You don't have to explain it. I understand.
Right.
The problem is not me not understanding.
You're right. That's true. That's sorry.
And then the wisdom of right away, showing us this baby of Yoda species that I knew they had to get out there quick, because I knew that was going to be showing up all over the place prior to the holiday season. But then the second episode, where you kind of establish it. There was a question of whether he was going to bring in his quarry. They had established the fact that he was a foundling, and he kind of had this sensitivity for this young child, and the fact that he brought in his quarry and received his payment in the ice cream maker, which I thought was a brilliant callback to original trilogy, right? So now we've established that this is a mechanism for some sort of a carrying safe. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He gets his new suit of Mandalorian armor. Well, I've skipped over the entire episode with the Ewoks and the fact that they had the Trandoshan bounty hunters that were kind of tracking down the Mandalorian, which was again this whole concept of these characters that we saw within Empire Strikes Back. We've got Bosk, that's one of those bounty hunters on Vader's ship.
Yeah,
that big reptilian creature. So they've kind of brought them back into the picture. And that second episode about the egg. Which was brilliant on so many levels. The Jawa fight scene. Apparently, you can vaporize Jawas right and left, and you can still sit down and negotiate with them later. I was impressed that the Jawas don't hold a grudge.
Well, they take your stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the capitalist society. Yeah, we lost our entire family, but you present me with Suga, so we're okay.
Right.
I think my favorite part about the whole egg thing was like, they wanted the egg, and you're like, okay, maybe it's something. It's like all hairy and looks like a Wookiee egg. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then he brings it to them, thinking like, oh, they're gonna like cherish it or whatever.
Yeah.
And they crack it open, and they're like elbow deep in it, like bringing out some like weird edible slime.
It was a giant hairy Cadbury egg.
Yes, looks awesome.
And they just like, that's how fickle Jawas are.
And they were done with it. They probably just dropped half of it still full. It's like, okay, well, Suga's done. We're on next.
That's
I want your ship.
Here's your stuff.
Yeah, go away.
Weirdos.
I was impressed. Another great example of how crafty Quill was. He apparently repaired the ship in one night, which was quite impressive.
Right. Well, that was the
montage.
Right. That was the A-team. That was the A-team method.
That's right. Oh my God, what a great callback!
That's true. That's the first thing I thought of was the A-team was like the overnight cool music, torch. Let's toughen up this Econoline van, and we're gonna bust out of here.
I love it when a plan comes together. There was actually, I felt like there was kind of a hidden reference as well in that episode, because back during the filming of Empire Strikes Back, they had kind of established a company down in the Los Angeles or the Hollywood area, when the rest of Lucasfilm had already kind of moved up to the San Francisco area, and that company that was established down in the Hollywood area was referred to as the Egg Company. So I thought it was interesting that there could be kind of a hidden reference in that episode to that.
That's fantastic.
Which would be classic, like an old school callback by Filoni.
Yeah. Like 6 layers deep.
Which,
like,
I mean, coming from Filoni, he's probably very familiar with that.
He probably sketched the whole thing out.
6 degrees of it. So Kevin Bacon once had an egg, and
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Right.
He ate one for breakfast.
Yes,
exactly.
The episode that I had the biggest problem with, and it's a very specific reason,
was the last one, because now you have to wait.
No.
Okay.
That too. But no, it's The Prisoner. I mean, fantastic episode. Loved it.
Bill Burr did
fantastic. Yeah, all the actors were fantastic. Okay. The story was great. The motifs, the alien-esque sort of hunting part of it. It was absolutely loved it. My biggest problem was the fact that I couldn't read the Arabesh on Matt Lanter's hat.
Yes.
I mean, I paused and read. I was waiting for today to hopefully find out what the heck that hat said, but I guess I'm not going to get that answer.
I didn't even notice it, honestly.
Oh, it's my desktop screensaver.
That is
This is what I can't do.
That's my homework assignment then. I'm going to have to go find that picture.
Oh, do we have his other homework?
Oh no.
Oh, we'll get it to him later.
Okay, yeah.
our last visit to Galaxy's Edge provided us many opportunities to
photograph Orobash.
Yeah, so you may have already translated because you were there yourself, but
some of it,
I think
I'm
half
sure.
my camera roll.
Pretty obscure stuff too.
Yes, that's true. So we'll have to do a post. Maybe we'll put a page on the website. Rob's homework. Scroll through it.
I would love it. It would give me something, another way to practice my Orobash, other than just watching old episodes of Rebels and Clone Wars.
We need to like put it up on like that copy paper with like the lines on it.
Oh yeah. Literally homework.
Right, exactly. I think going back to the brilliance of revealing the child, my wife appeased me by watching the first episode with me when it first came out. That morning, actually, because I worked the night before, and I came home and I'm like, let's do this. So we watched it, and she was.
Oh yeah. Before we get to that,
what?
Of course, he watched it at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I could watch it until 7 o'clock that night when I got home from work. I think I had to back up my phone for the amount of messages that I hadn't seen it yet. Have you seen it yet? Have you seen it yet? Let me know when you see it. Have you seen it yet? Yeah, that was nice for me.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes. So, well, that's what you get for having a day job. So she's watching it with me and just like, oh, this is that guy from Empire, right? No, it's not that guy. This is a different guy. And yeah, but that last scene when she's kind of checking her email or whatever, I don't know. And that last scene when the little hand comes up and then he pulls the blanket away, and she saw the child, she like threw her phone down, sat up, and was glued to the screen.
Yeah.
And then from then, I was like, we're going to watch The Mandalorian on Friday. She's like, I'm going to watch the Baby Yoda show. So, we still watched it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just call it different names.
Right.
Call it what you want. Whatever it takes to get you interested.
Yeah.
But I think it brings up a fantastic point. Well, like, and also like before we talked about where it's like sort of a gateway drug, but whether or not Lucasfilm knew the gold mine that they had with Baby Yoda, who wouldn't? Obviously, and the fact that they were going to keep that a secret, especially with no merchandising, so to keep that reveal very strong, it makes 100% sense. But what I love about the series is that it didn't become the Baby Yoda show or the child show. It remained The Mandalorian, with the primary character that's being saved is the child. Well, what eventually became, because we, like as Rob was saying before, like, was he going to give it up? Was he not going to give it up?
Right.
So by the end of the series, of course, that it was his primary job. But the action that surrounded the child was so important to establish, like, oh my, it's such cool scenes and everything, and it always comes back to the child, like where's he hits his arm activator and pushes the egg away, and so there's certain cases where you get that reminder, oh yeah, that's right, the child, where's the child and all this, but you still have the surrounding Star Wars story building around it.
Absolutely. And I did think, like all good Star Wars, there is layers to it, right? It's what we've talked about in the past, and you can watch it with really no background knowledge and it can be completely entertaining. But right off the bat, within the first episode, you've got, when he goes to visit the client, the Werner Herzog character, and you've got Dr. Pershing that comes in, and, right away, people are noticing that he has a patch on his arm that is a callback to the facility where all the clones were created for the Grand Army of the Republic in Attack of the Clones. And so there are a lot of pathways that are still unexplored that was really never looked at any point later in the season. They didn't really address it directly. So they have a lot of interesting places to go with it, I think, in season 2. But there was all kinds of stuff for old school fans, for the hardcore fans, for the casual fans. Certainly it brought in new fans, and provided that kind of unifying item for everyone in the world of Star Wars to really get on board with. And to your point, the only episode that I had an issue with was episode 5 when they were on Tatooine, primarily because I didn't think that the acting was as good as some of the acting that I'd seen in the other series from some of the secondary characters. But even with that being said, it was still a compelling story. It was
Yes.
exactly what you needed mid-season 2. It was a little bit of a break, a little bit of a callback to the old school fans, and kind of that kind of respite before we got into those last 3 episodes that were really moving.
The last third. Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. You got, you put a tent pole and like, okay, this is a very familiar planet. That's a great point, because you've got a very familiar planet, and I was about to say Talking Bay, Talking Bay 335. That's another podcast, Talking Bay 94.
Right.
The docking bay, and like, it's so familiar.
Right.
And then as soon as he leaves there, that's where that final arc happens.
Right.
That's where it all takes off to the end. It builds to the end.
Yeah.
It's very cool to see what's happened to Tatooine since we saw it in the original trilogy as well.
Yeah.
I assume you're talking about the cantina.
Yes.
Right. And it's just how kind of how they've railed against the Empire with the stormtrooper helmet.
Yeah, that's right.
Just how it's kind of like we're free again and we can do as we please now.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and
telling.
They made a very specific point of going back to that cantina right out of A New Hope, where previously we don't serve their kind here, and now like the entire cantina is droids, right?
Exactly.
and you've got this young bounty hunter that is kind of sitting right in that same booth that Han Solo was sitting in, leg up on the table, just like Han Solo, and that's where the comparison ends.
Yeah.
It's boots on a table.
Right. Yeah, right.
Get him out of there.
Yeah.
The table should have a reserved sign.
Yeah, a little red felt,
A little rope.
but on the tabletop.
VIP rope. Yeah. Sure.
Just enough for two pair of boots,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say though, I think it's hilarious that the one episode Charles doesn't like is episode 6, and it's for the funniest reason possible, right? The Aurebesh translation.
Well, totally.
But I definitely felt like episode 6 is really where it started to ramp up to kind of that finale in episode 8. I thought that whole quote unquote heist of the prisoner heist on that rebel prisoner transport ship was great. But I also thought that I know a lot of people caught the fact that when the 3 X-Wings came in to attack the base at the end, that Filoni was obviously the recognizable character. Yeah. But I immediately looked at my wife and I was like, that's Rick Famuyiwa and Deborah Chow and the other 2 X-Wings. And she's like, what? So I love that they're like shamelessly inserting themselves into the episode.
Yeah.
It was just
and Matt Lanter. And Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, playing the Deveronian. Yeah, I mean, I was jesting. I mean, I love that episode. I thought that was a fantastic episode and a great, like I said, callback to the sort of the like Alien and sort of those scary movies, and like the lighting and everything. And one of the other pieces of that series is that chapter was that he was extremely savvy in the way that he closed out that entire episode, entire chapter, and it showed compassion to a certain degree. It showed smartness. It also allowed for further story arcs in the second season. Hopefully, there was a lot of great things that came out of that episode, and it was as fun as it was. There was some another example of some deep cuts for not only the last chapter but also season 2.
I think the coolest thing to see visually in that episode was a live action male Twi'lek.
Yeah, so true. So true.
We had the female Twi'leks in Jabba's palace, but we hadn't had a male in live action.
And he's got a streak to him. Very, very cool.
Yeah. So and then obviously the wits about him.
Yes.
And he kind of got blindsided when they threw him in the cell.
Yes.
It's like, can't trust these guys.
No, of course not. Yeah, and he had. I mean, there's got to be an inkling for that. But yes.
But I think he did. But like he was just he was too far from the
correct.
door.
Right.
But
not at that spot.
I loved how he's like, "Hey, how you doing, droid?" And and he gets out. And then of course the droid in the Razor Crest was like, bad news, guys.
Yeah.
He got out already.
Oh, crap.
Transmissions are being jammed. That can mean only one thing. Communications disruption, right?
Not Rathars, no.
Yeah, right.
No.
Not Rathars.
We had a
Well,
bigger crew.
and you also get that derisive moment with Bill Burr where he's like, "Oh, maybe you're a
maybe he's
a Gungan underneath that helmet."
You don't take off your helmet.
Yeah.
You said no take off your helmet.
Another point about that too is like these guys have only heard of the Mandalorian,
Right.
And they're like, okay, this guy hasn't impressed us so far. And then, when push comes to shove and they're, getting gunned down.
Yeah.
He goes in there and he's like, pow, 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 takes care of all of them.
Yeah.
And then Bill Burr's just standing there like, well, I guess clean up your mess.
Yeah, clean up your and so derogatory.
Yeah.
And they're like standing there watching him take out like 6 of the droids.
Saving all of their tapes.
Yeah.
And then he looks back when they first started attacking, and Bill Burr's like, or his character at least, he's like, I knew it. I knew he was to take off. Like, really? Yeah. No, he's about to save you is what he's about to do.
I do have to say that for someone who is supposedly protecting the child, I think Child Protective Services would have been called in every episode. He seemed totally fine with like shutting him in a room and walking off the ship.
Yeah. I love how Amy Sedaris calls him out on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you can't leave a baby in a ship unattended.
Well, no, that's why I think your carbonite thing is perfect. Shove him in carbonite. I mean, there's no escape.
Vital signs are stable.
Yeah.
Lando knows.
He looks even cute inside the carbonite. Tinkle, tinkle, little kid.
Now he's like Italian.
Why is Lando from Brooklyn?
I don't remember that.
It's in the comics.
It is.
Print media.
But yeah, those the last 2 episodes. So yeah, episode 6 again, a great like heist / caper episode that was totally standalone. But like you said, they leave a lot of room for it to go places. And certainly at that point in the season, they knew that season 2 had been green lighted. They were already working on it. By the time they finished everything up with that, but the fact that then it kind of goes into that 2-part episode where you've got Grief Karga calling him back to
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Again, and I was very surprised that first and foremost, Cara Dune, who was definitely portrayed as one of the core cast members at Celebration, and in all the preliminary materials, didn't show up until episode 4. And the same type of thing with Giancarlo Esposito, who shows up in episode 7, right?
7, yeah.
Right there at the end, and
Like at the end of episode.
Yeah,
right.
He like Luke Skywalker cameoed his way into episode 7.
That's right.
so I was super surprised that it took that long.
And there was episode 7 too.
That's right, episode 7. And Luke, I see what you did there. That's pretty good.
Very nice.
But yeah, but then it gives you the mystique of the entire series. Like, wow, when are we going to see Cara Dune? That's okay.
Yeah.
The story will figure itself out. But I guess what are you going to trot Bill Burr out at Celebration, which would have been really interesting to see him, how he would have reacted at Celebration. But you bring in a couple of like you said, Cara Dune, and so then does that speak to then season 2? They didn't know it was be greenlit at that point, but strategically speaking, I think that it was a great choice in the sense that you have a extremely strong female character who's got her wits about her and can take out the Mandalorian if she wants, and when she has that fight when she comes back together for the final 2 arc episode, she's having that. Which I thought it was a Zabraka a second because that sort of like I saw some horns. Is it a Zabraka?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. There we go. Cool. And she's having that fight with the electricity, the belt thing there.
Yeah.
You can tell she can definitely keep her own. But the mystery of one of these characters is going to show. I mean, that's it. I love it because guess what? You're not getting the entire story in a trailer or at Celebration. You you sit down and invest in this story.
Pat?
Yes.
I agree.
Well, that's what I was kind of waiting on because I wanted to see Gina Carano, and
right.
I was looking forward to that. And episode 1, no. Episode 2, no. 3, No. There's season 4. Oh, and then he left her. Okay, well then that's fine. 6. Okay, now he's back. Yeah. All right. Okay, I see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the same thing with IG-11. It's like, oh, he's like killed in the first episode.
Yeah.
But he wasn't.
Yeah.
And then he's back.
Yeah, exactly. I think that then, you got your weekly release method.
Yes.
You've got characters that are peppered in with the story, but so they're forcing you to keep the long haul and the long story, the long play.
That's not how the Force works.
Oh, it didn't work that way. No. I'm in sanitation. Don't worry about me. Okay. But you get that. Yeah. Okay. But you get that by the end of episode 8, you get how they packed the past 7 thing was perfectly played out. And my gosh, I can't wait for season 2. Holy moly. This is going to be so good.
You have to, though.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Well, again, and this was a series that this is really the first time we got a chance to see a live action group of Mandalorians in action. We kind of skipped over in that 3rd episode, and certainly the episode that was that I was waiting for, knowing that Dominic Pace was going to be in that episode with his bounty hunter. It was really cool to see him show up on screen, and so happy for him that he's got a various con schedule that's filling up quickly for the upcoming year, which is one of the things I had talked to him about, was that he would have been just happy having it be an opportunity for him to go out and talk about that character on the con circuit, but to get to see the heavy Mandalorians, right, which we never really saw much.
Favreau's
yeah.
And they did in that 3rd episode, when Favreau's character is kind of flying next to the Razor Crest, and he's, the Mandalorian's like, I've got to get one of those, which is definitely kind of, a little bit of a hint at what was to come toward the end of the season.
Yeah.
We got to see the whistling birds, right? The various little missiles that went into his wrist launcher when he got his full Curious of Mandalorian armor crafted, which was awesome. So we get to see some new features to the Mandalorian armor and why that was such a special type of thing to have. They never really address it fully within the original trilogy or any of the other episodes that we watch.
Yeah, you perfectly said. Is that's where we get the freedom. Well, we, as if we did it, but they get the freedom to expand upon those things, and then we'll call outs or whatever. But like that scene when my daughter lost her mind because she thought it was just like a cartoon, and it was like, well, it's funny you should say that. When the Gills showed up with their jetpacks, it's like that could have been a scene right out of the Clone Wars.
Totally.
And she saw, and she saw this. This looks like a cartoon just because of the coloration and the backdrop and those things. I said, yeah, this is literally like clipped out of the Clone Wars, and it was so cool to see that.
Right. I do think that, kind of getting back to later in the season and Giancarlo Esposito's character, that when he arrives on scene, one of the things that jumped out at me was that the only other time, he comes down in his TIE fighter and lands outside the cantina there on Navarro, and we see the wings on that TIE fighter fold. And the only time I can recall seeing that anywhere else within Star Wars was in Rebels. That was the type of TIE fighter that the Inquisitors would fly. If you recall, like end of season 2, right, when they arrive. So and it kind of makes me wonder, because as we get to the end of that last episode and we think that his character Moff Gideon has been killed by the Mandalorian, and all of a sudden we see him cut himself out of that TIE fighter with the Darksaber. He's got the Darksaber. He's flying a TIE fighter that's very reminiscent of these Inquisitors. I'm not saying that he's an Inquisitor, but he kind of makes me. He seems to be like a collector of things that are tied to some of these Force entities.
And a collector of knowledge, too.
Yeah.
Yes.
He knows everything about everyone in that room.
And and even if he's not a collector, even if he is a collector or he's got ties to it, it definitely places him in key parts of the story. And when he burst out of that thing with the Darksaber, I mean, I believe I screamed out loud, cried like a baby, all those different things. It was, oh my gosh, talk about and a live action version of it too, which was just an amazing thing to see. That's like, wow, this guy and they've given themselves the freedom to like, wow, how do you get that? I mean, flashbacks, whatever. It's so open. The canvas is wide.
And I believe that was another time when I saw the episode in the morning, and I was like, you have to tell me as soon as you see this episode.
You mean like every episode?
Yeah, but this one especially.
Yeah, whatever.
This one more so because
You were extra animated.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. I mean, when the reveal happened with the child at the end, I mean, he was texting me. I said, okay, we're going to watch.
He said, I'm starting now.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
He was literally had it timed on his phone. So he was on his watch. He was timing because he was at work. And he texted me. So at about the right time, I would have seen it. So what did you think? Huh? I said, we had to pause. He goes, oh, you. And then, of course, I didn't hear from him because he had to get back to work. And then I finally texted him. Did I FaceTime you?
I don't know.
But yeah, you were at work, but you FaceTime me at work anyways. But yes, he had it counted down to the minute where I should have seen the child and I hadn't seen it because of family requirements. So yes. Yeah.
No, yes. No, but to your point about the fact that it does open up a lot for season 2, having that reveal of the Darksaber at the end of season 1. I mean, we've established that the Mandalorians have certainly fallen from where we saw them, even within Rebels. But one of the things that they established within those animated series is that Darksaber is kind of, it's a hugely symbolic thing for the Mandalorian people, and really the wielder of that Darksaber is the person who would unite the Mandalorians and kind of lead them. And so there is huge potential here for that to become part of a storyline, whether it's season 2 or onwards, that this could be kind of about the redemption of not just the Mandalorian character of Din Djarin, but kind of the reemergence of the Mandalorians from this hiding that they've gone into.
Right. I mean, that's even from all the way back the call out in chapter 1 with the client having the Beskar, and isn't it right to have, it's so good to see, or like, I mean, this is verbatim, but like, isn't it so nice to see that the Beskar is back into the hands of those who need it or the ones who should have it, the Mandalorian. So it's the Purge seems to have been an extremely dark time in their culture. Or the Creed, at least, as we learned, it's hopefully maybe like a like you said, a redemption for them and like a sort of a reestablishment. Maybe not in hiding, no longer having to have the mask on all the time. Oh, the helmet. Sorry, yeah.
And there's a big cliffhanger about, how many of those Mandalorians are still out there. Certainly, when he does kind of find the armor in that final episode, and she has got this pile of Mandalorian armor that she's going in and melting down. It's implied that, these Mandalorians have been kind of cleared out in this enclave. And interestingly enough, the character of the armorer, the fact that she takes out that group of stormtroopers with just her, forge tools, was another wonderful example of just what a crafty group the Mandalorians are.
So true. Yeah. So true. Reminds me of a bit of Rey, like he's just like, he could be standing at the doorway. It's like, oh, okay. No help needed here.
Exactly. Awesome. So what were your kind of big takeaways from the end of The Mandalorian? What kind of stuff are you really looking forward to or hoping for in season 2?
I wasn't paying attention to this.
No, it's
thinking about Baby Yoda.
Baby Chewbacca in season 2.
Oh yeah, and they're best friends. They're in daycare together.
Oh my gosh.
I see it like a Disney Junior series there.
Yeah.
How long would they be in daycare for? Like 100 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's like
Until they're potty trained.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. So I think I'm very excited to see what's going on with the Darksaber.
Yes.
Okay, as I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah.
With your little Darksaber stuff.
Yeah,
and it's so trivial.
Yeah.
Darksaber stuff.
Blow that off.
Darksaber, you jerk.
Yeah.
But I think that I want to just see what's going on with the child and why he's so important to everybody. Because it was the driving force behind the entire series. And I think, the Mandalorian had decided to go back and essentially rescue him because he knew that they weren't planning to do anything good.
No, right. Yeah.
If he was, bringing him to an adoption agency and somebody was going to care for him, care for him well, then he wouldn't have thought twice about it.
Right.
But the fact that he comes in and he's strapped down and, he's got the doctor like pushing buttons and all, he's like, no, this is bad news. So,
and that Imperial probe droid hanging there, right?
What's that?
That the Imperial interrogation droid that was hanging there in the room as well. Definitely a callback for for us to kind of get that not so safe feeling, right?
Yeah, that sense of danger that he's just he's not in for a bright future. So I think I hope that we'll see some of that explored and kind of maybe even a little bit more about the species in general. Not like a whole Yoda backstory. Right. Because I like my Yoda mysterious, but a little bit about kind of what's so special about him and what they intended to do with him.
Well, that's a great point too, because it cannot be understated that Yoda and that character within all of Star Wars leading up to this has been kind of sacrosanct. I mean, that was one of those things that was off limits for people, was to explore anything about him. It was always about the mystery. We don't know his species. We don't know any of his backstory. And for Filoni to be allowed to even expose another member of that species as a key character within the series is huge. I would think. So it will be very interesting to see how much they delve into that, or if it's exactly what we were talking about before, which is that he's there as a component of the story, but certainly the Mandalorian himself is the core of what's going on here.
Right. I think for me, what I'm looking forward to is the exploration of the creed and how, we understand that, especially in the Clone Wars and then in Rebels, that, Mandalore is a planet. Of which the Mandalorian sort of warrior race is on there as well, and it's a creed, almost like a unit, sort of almost like an army, like a self-conscripted army, and how that fits in with their culture, what happened to the rest of the Mandalorian race and population, and how that all fits in. So just getting some more delving into, where that society is at, especially after the purge. Was it a purge about the Mandalorian warrior race? Was it a purge about the entire public that was on Mandalore? I'm looking forward to that. Of course, the Darksaber. I hope that Yoda's not going to be given up to like a adoption agency, like the Gallius Rax adoption agency.
Oh no.
little foretelling, but will any of those types of things then feed into the sequel trilogy, and just how the First Order, and like there's a whole bunch of questions in there, because like we're sort of marching towards that, and the unknown regions and what was set up in the Aftermath series, but then sort of built upon the First Order, and especially with the Rise of Skywalker and how that ended with Palpatine and everything like that. So there's some really cool things that we could also then project into what we're at now in at least in the timeline right now as well. It could be really cool.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to catch that Gallius Rax reference that Charles dropped there, I would recommend you go check out the Aftermath series. I'm actually on the second book. It's one of those things that I had skipped over a while back, and kind of working my way through that right now. So just got introduced to that character.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
So, no, you didn't spoil a thing. So
okay.
I already have a little bit of an idea of what's going on with him. But anyway, we won't go into that right now. But certainly for season 2, I do think it's interesting, because the whole Mandalorian series was put out there as, a lone gunslinger on the edges of known space. And we're seeing now that he's kind of drawing this group of people around him. I was shocked that they killed off Quill, because I thought he was such an interesting character within season 1. I thought for sure when we got to episode 8, we were going to realize that he just got stunned or something, and that he was all right. But it does not appear that was the case. No. We've lost him. We've lost IG-11, although certainly in a way that furthered this whole storyline where the Mandalorian has got this prejudice against droids, really based on his childhood and the fact that these battle droids had basically killed his people, his family. So very interesting to see kind of how he draws this group around him and where they go with that. I definitely think that in some ways that it is going to be a story about not just him, but the Mandalorian people as a whole. And they've clearly changed up the dynamic of the Mandalorians, because back in old school Star Wars, they were very much a people who were based on people from the planet of Mandalore, and the surrounding moons in that area. And now it seems to be much more, I'm sure due to the purge as well, that it is a creed. It's a it's a code that they follow more so than just being a people, based on planetary origins. So that's kind of a cool dynamic to see, and I can't believe that they're going to go on with this whole having to keep the helmet on at all times. Certainly him having his face revealed within that 7th episode was a powerful moment, because we had not seen his face, even though most of us know what Pedro Pascal looks like. I think it's going to be interesting to see how that progresses.
Yeah, no, there's so much cool potential, for season 2 and where they can go with things, and they left it open enough where they can really have some fun exploring that.
Cool.
Yeah, and they've got the whole timeline in there where it's just shortly after Return of the Jedi and all, well before the sequel trilogy, and canon-wise, there's not a whole lot of limitations on them.
Right.
Which is great for a show like that has a character that's not already been established, and a timeline that's not been established, because you can do whatever you want as a writing team and as just creative storytelling.
And you don't have those bookends that you have to sort of line up to.
Yeah.
But you have that with Cassian and K2SO, but still that's going to be a compelling story, or even the Kenobi series. But to have like you said, have that freeform one that you can just sort of explore, throw some ties back into the universe, and but you have a freedom episode or series, and you got a couple of ones that have established characters that people are going to know and love too.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that point. I think that is one of the best things about a lot of the new content that they're coming out with. And the fact that when they talk about potential new films, a new trilogy being set in a period that we really haven't explored much before, I think that is a huge part of why the fan base is so unified in terms of how they feel about it, because you don't end up with these people who say, well, you can't do that because that goes against what was established here and here and here. And so that kind of takes me out of it. You don't have to worry about that. You can just go out there and tell a story in that universe. So that is
have fun with it.
Incredibly cool. Yeah. And that's what it should be. It should be fun. Because despite all of the discussion that goes on online, it's a story, right?
Yeah.
Well,
a bunch of movies.
Yeah. Although you guys have made it real by cosplaying as all these people. So this is the real deal. I was trying to bring it back around because you said you had a big reveal at the end, and I was going to get a scoop on it. So
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, this is less the reveal, but it's also something that's happening. I am actually right behind us. You can see my contact cement that I intend to use on my my Mandalorian helmet that I am crafting right behind us. Actually.
Yes.
So
that's gonna be now that's for the run, right? You're doing it for, or
it's for Mando watching,
right?
Every time I watch the show. No, I do the Run Disney Star Wars races, and I've not duplicated any characters for any of them, which has proven to be more and more difficult with each run because I run out of practical characters. So I'm going more and more impractical, which I think this year includes the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
yeah.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's a good thing you avoided the K2SO one because that was getting kind of complicated.
Yeah, that was just the apparatus kept falling every time I stepped. It was bad news.
Plus, it's hard to understand you with the apparatus.
Yeah,
exactly.
But you do like to slap people, so it would have been perfect.
It would have been perfect. Yes.
Yes. But the scoop that we were able to confirm just on Thursday is that we're going to be appearing at the ConverSWations, which is because we're going to be there. We're going to have a table, which is kind of cool.
We are going to have a table.
We're going to have a table at the ConverSWations. It's a Comic-Con, obviously, down in Fort Myers, and it's a one-day show. It's a small show, but it's going to be a good one, and we're gonna have a show. We're gonna have a table there, and we're gonna do some interviews. We're gonna do our Fandom Presence Volume 3 from there. And so for us, this represents a big step in us getting out there. Look, we'll do it anyways. Like I told the guy, I said we're gonna be there with our iPhones taking interviews anyway.
Nice.
So it would be kind of fun to have a table there, and we're gonna promote that through our social media. And like we just talked about it with you, and how in the future that's going to be something we're gonna look forward to doing more and more of. Yeah.
That's going to be cool. I always love it when you guys do your live on-site interviews when you go to Galaxy's Edge or whatever. Those are always entertaining. Listening to some of the kind of on-site interviews that Pat had done when he went and rode Rise of the Resistance, to get that feedback from people right after they come off that attraction cannot be understated. For anyone who is not, we talked about it a couple episodes ago. I know you guys have an episode on it. It is electric, both waiting in line, kind of going through the experience with people. And then when you come off, I didn't get the experience of having the cast members like Pat did, kind of cheering and having executives standing there. That had to be crazy. But, when people get a chance to kind of experience that in-world Star Wars moment together, talk about something that gets people excited about Star Wars. And again, I've heard of people who have no real ties to watching the films that go back even into just Galaxy's Edge and are floored by the detail and the feel of that land. So I love that there are things going on within Star Wars right now that are not just appeasing fans that exist, but also getting people interested in it, because, whether you're big into sci-fi or not, it is definitely just a phenomenon, a human phenomenon. It's been going on for coming up on 43 years now. And there's a reason for that. It's really about people and relationships and experiences. And certainly they're still delivering on that. So, really looking forward to hearing about your con experience down there.
Yeah, well, we're going to be, like I said, promoting that throughout the next few months, and sort of ramping up some stuff, and see if we can, the Droid Builders is going to be there. The 501st is going to be there. So we'll reach out to them as well. But we're going to have a little table for a couple hours and have some fun there and sort of ramp that up. So we'll let you know. We'll keep you up to speed for sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely promote it on our end as well. I know we've got a few listeners down there in the Florida area that hopefully we can drive them that way and double your listenership, get you up to 6 people.
Yes.
Pat always talks about your 3 listeners. So I suspect it's far more than that. You got 40 something responses on a poll. I don't get that kind of feedback on polls.
We got a poll coming up today that you'll be very interested to see, because I saw that you'll be involved with the Scarif podcast. Boba Fett episode coming up this week. Yeah, they're going to be having a live chat about Boba Fett. So today's poll, we're going to be having a chat about Boba Fett too. The timing is actually quite funny.
Cool.
And there'll be a poll up today. Yes. So that's it'll be very interesting to see what comes about that one. But
we've got some cool collaborations with some other podcasts. I know we're going to do some stuff with Scarif, kind of a home and away type series with them. Boba Fett, and I think the other one Ro had come up with was fan service, the other 4-letter word, which I'm really looking forward to talking about. We're going to be doing we're going to be doing a conversation about, as part of the fan service, some of the stuff in Rogue One and certainly Scarif, which ties back to their podcast. And we're going to have a February giveaway of Jyn and Cassian Black Series figures. I figured, what better way? If Rogue One is a love letter to the fans, and you got Jyn and Cassian, that all ties in with a month that contains
February.
Valentine's Day perfectly, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Every once in a while I get an idea. And then University of Coruscant, who I definitely want to mention if people are into, especially a nice little shorter Star Wars podcast, but very unique in terms of the way that they do their presentation. He's a former holodrama star that is a guest lecturer at the University of Coruscant. They're like 15-minute episodes, but really well produced, well written, and he's a funny guy. So we had an intro from him at the beginning of this show. So looking forward to working with those guys. Always love having conversations with you two. Charles is always a regular when we do our fireside chats for Scarif. Always trying to get a rise out of me. Successfully, almost always, yes. Yeah, again. So yeah, check those out on the Scarif podcast channel. But guys, thank you so much for coming on. It was a fun discussion, and I'm super excited to see what The Mandalorian has in store for us in season 2.
Same here, and thank you very much for having us.
Oh,
yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so
anytime
much.
and always. And I'm looking forward to seeing that Boba Fett helmet, Pat. That's going to be stellar, I'm sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll be posting photos.
Oh yeah.
You got to put on the Plo Koon mask and then put the helmet on over that.
Look at his face.
I know.
It reminds me of the Lego Star Wars game where you can put on the stormtrooper helmet and like the stormtroopers think you're a trooper.
Oh wow!
Regardless
Let's
of
have
what you're wearing.
From here down, you just walk by them and they just like nod at you and stuff, and it's ridiculous, but it's Lego Star Wars. But then when you're Chewie,
yeah,
and you put the helmet on, it's like this. Up to the side, it doesn't even come. It's just,
and they still let him go by.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they're just like, oh, another trooper.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, that's what it looks like when I try to put on this Poe Dameron helmet that's on the shelf behind me. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
And we're off the rails.
And we are. Awesome. Well, you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll definitely be talking with you soon.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure. So again, a huge thank you to Charles and Pat from the ConverSWations podcast for coming on and joining us to talk about season 1 of The Mandalorian. We ran long, so I'm going to skip all of that news for the week. But I just will remind you, please, if you get a chance, if you want to reach out to us, take advantage of that new voicemail that we've got. The number again is 201-746-JTAP. And you can leave a message there if it fits in with an episode we've got going on. I'm more than happy to play it on the air, and very much looking forward to having another way for fans to contact us. Really thankful that I have had some contact with some of our fans, and actually those contacts have led to some opportunities for us to have additional folks on the show who have some very specialized areas of expertise. So going to be doing a show here later this month with University of Coruscant. So look out for that. I think that's going to be on the 24th. And again, that 2-parter mega crossover event with the Scarif podcast. So keep an eye out for that episode dropping as well. But until then, definitely check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at JTA Podcast. And then on our email at jtapodcast@gmail.com. And please tell a friend if you like this show. It's going to help us grow, and it's just going to help us be able to bring you guys more and more amazing content. So with that said, I'm going to be heading out. You guys have a wonderful week, and may the Force be with you.